Hello again everybody, this is X with DankMTG. We're looking at a classic archetype of Magic, one that disappeared from Modern a while ago, but is back and even easier to get into than ever. This is Affinity in Modern. If you watch a 12-cast deck tech, this is a modern translation of that deck. If you have built 8 casts already, you could make this whole deck for less than or about $50. You can also go the other way, build this list, then work your way up to Legacy. The goal this deck has is to swarm the board with cheap artifacts, which adds to our Affinity count to reduce our payoff cards significantly or even have them be free. What you're seeing here is a common turn 1 and turn 2 sequencing. Even if we don't have direct Affinity cards, we can still win the game with artifact-based synergies. I've said and probably will keep saying Affinity, but before we go further, let's explain what that is. Affinity is an ability. It reduces the cost of a spell for each of the specified permanent controlled at the time of casting. That was a bit specific and technical. To put it simply, Affinity makes the spell cost less for each permanent you own. In this deck, we mean for each artifact. Affinity isn't only limited to artifacts, but that is the most popular kind. As you see here with Spire Golem, this spell is reduced by the number of islands its controller owns. If we are playing this card and have 1 island, this spell costs 5 generic to cast. If we control 2 islands, it costs 4, and so on. If we control 6 islands, the spell is reduced to 0. You see how this can be used to our advantage. Well, not the islands or clowns, but for artifacts, as our deck is made up of 82% artifacts. Yes, really, I've done the math. I will be using the terms Affinity count and artifact count interchangeably, but for most part they mean the same thing. It's the amount of artifacts we control. We're playing a set of the iconic Affinity and bots all-stars, Memnite and Ornithopter. As a new player, it's crazy to grasp the concept of a free creature spell, then realizing a 1-1 and 0-2 aren't exactly the best spells to play late game, or even past turn 2. But in this deck, these are crucial cards. Just having these on the battlefield is already synergistic. It contributes to our artifact count. It's debatable which of the two is better. Memnite is better on its own offensively, but Ornithopter is better defensively, and the evasion does help us out, as you'll see going forward. Gingerbrute is here as a singleton, mostly as an Urza Saga target, which is a lot of our deck, and that is something considered for all of our 0-drops and 1-drop artifacts, but this is also a utility slot. A haste creature is great if we need to push damage through, and its pseudo evasion does get by a lot more creatures than you'd think. It's a food, so gaining 3 life can be helpful against our opponent. Frogmite is a classic Affinity veteran. Like I said in the 8-cast video, we still love Frogmite. A 2-2 may not seem impressive, but when it's consistently casted for free and contributes to our deck's game plan, that's when it's impressive. Having a higher converted mana cost, or mana value as it's called now, does also turn into an advantage against prismatic ending decks. Not only does our opponent need 4 different colors to remove this card, but they need to sink at least 4 mana into removing a card we played for free. Now onto our payoffs. All of these have Affinity, so they can drop really early, some can even drop as soon as turn 1, but more consistently on or after turn 2. We have another Affinity veteran, Myr Enforcer. 7 mana for a 4/4 may seem a little lackluster, but remember, we are never going to pay 7 mana casts. 4/4 is both great on the offense and defense. We are only playing 2 because since the time Myr Enforcer was printed, there have been some upgrades. We have Myr Enforcer's Fraternal Twin, Sojourner's Companion. Almost the exact same, which will have already been good, but this has artifact land cycling. Land cycling may seem limited as only grabbing a specific land. We can color fix as we have artifact lands that produce colored mana, it's a shuffle effect, and can thin our deck. Or let's not forget, we can play this as a threat or blocker, that's played as a set. We also have our final creature payoff in the main board, a set of Thought Monitor. This card is gas, a body, and evasion all in one, just for 1 blue mana. I know the converted mana cost says 7, but we'll never pay that much. It's rare, get it, that we pay 2 or 3 mana. Even if we do have to pay as much as 3 mana, that just means the next one will cost less. We wouldn't be playing this deck correctly if we didn't play a set. Now we come to the majority of our non-artifact cards, the non-artifact spells. We have 2 Thoughtcast and 4 Metallic Rebuke. You could also play with the numberings, but I find 2 Thoughtcast is good. Unlike Monitor, Thoughtcast does not add to our Affinity count. For the most part, this is our Thought Monitor, copies 5 and 6. Metallic Rebuke is played to hose down our opponent's plan, to remove our creatures, or counter their creatures or any card that they may want to disrupt us with. Like Prismatic Ending or Leylight's Binding, this has Improvise, which isn't Affinity, it's the Convoke version of Affinity. Don't forget, this can tap any artifact we control, and we can tap a creature that just entered the battlefield to help pay for the spell. You can consider other flex slots in this as well, or side up Metallic Rebukes you see fit. Now we get to look at more artifacts. Who would have thought? Well, these are non-creature artifacts. For most part, all of these are supplements of our Urza Sagas, except for Springleaf, even though that does work with Saga. Welding Jar is a great removal hate piece. Being a zero cast artifact does also help us get our affinity count higher and a lot quicker. Springleaf Drum not only fixes our mana, but can be pseudo acceleration with any creature that just entered the battlefield, or any creature we don't need to attack or block with. Aether Spellbomb does multiple things than just be an Urza Saga target. It can unsummon a creature we need to get through. It can also be used to bounce our own creature such as Thought Monitor to draw more cards, reset a blocker, cycle Sojourner's Companion if we need to, or just cantrip it. Shadowspear is a cake because Urza Saga is the fat kid. Well, not our fat kid. Or actually probably him too. The pump from this equipment is welcome, but the trample and lifelink is where this is really game changing. You'll see we'll be able to make our creatures really big, but chump blocking can be our worst enemy. This card completely negates those scenarios, and the lifelink keeps us in game longer to finish off our opponents. We have our last Urza Saga target in Relic of Progenitus. Its graveyard hate is pretty good, shrinking Dragon Rage Chandler, resetting Delirium, slow down Reanimator decks, or delaying a regent. Add to that, this card does cycle itself for more value. Next up, and a personal favorite for nostalgic reasons, is a set of Cranial Plating. I've played this card for a long time. Back when Affinity turned into bots, then back to Affinity, our affinity count really does benefit us when it pumps our creatures. Because of this equipment, it's not uncommon for us to be swinging for lethal in 2 turns, sometimes even 1. The low cost to cast and equip this makes it more than ideal. Don't ignore the double black activation, because you can instantly attach it to any creature that goes unblocked to really punish your opponent and engage combat tricks. We have a new addition in Nettlecyst. This was originally a one-of, but I felt that was lacking because I never saw it. But when I did, I was impressed. This has a lot of the benefits of Cranial Plating, but this does also pump toughness, does get pumped by Urza Saga, and has living weapon. So top decking this when we don't have any creatures means we're still in the game, as this equipment is its own threat. This does sit high at 3 CMC, especially considering we don't have a way to reduce that, and equipping at 2 mana isn't as good as Cranial Plating. 2 is kind of a sweet spot on how many I would play. Most of our deck is colorless, but we are mostly blue for Thoughtcast, Monitor, Rebuke, and Spellbomb. Even though Springleaf can fix our coloring, we don't want to rely on it because we only have 4. We have a set of Mistvault Bridge, 2 Razortide Bridge, and 1 Island. Bridges are played because artifacts. They are a little slower as they do enter tap, but being indestructible is a nice benefit. We are also playing 1 Island because having a basic in the deck isn't that bad of an idea. We do favor Mistvault more than Razortide, as the natural black does come up if we need to equip Cranial Plating instantly. The bridges entering tap does slow us down, that's why you don't play that many of them. Our remaining lands are completely colorless. We have 2 Treasure Vaults in the set of each Darksteel Citadel and Urza Saga. Treasure Vault is one of our best artifact lands since it always enters untapped. The activated ability can be relevant if we have dispensable mana and want to pump up our affinity count. This can serve as a combat trick with Cranial Plating, Nettlecyst, and Construct tokens from Saga. Darksteel Citadel is our last mainboard Affinity and Robots veteran. At one time, this was the only legal artifact land for Modern. Even then, it put in work. Being indestructible is better than not, but we care that this is an artifact, a land, and always enters untapped. Urza Saga is a workhorse. It can tutor a good amount of our deck, and its construct tokens fit as though they were made for this deck. This card with 2 mana sources can sometimes single-handedly win us the game. The potential the constructs have in this deck is crazy. It's not uncommon for a construct token to get out of hand. Your opponent will realize this when they have to chump block with their best creature, like a regent. That covers the main board. Let's see what we're playing in the sideboard. We have some more Urza Saga targets in Pithing Needle and Relic of Progenitus. Pithing Needle because it's a sideboard all-star, and Relic in case we need some more graveyard hate. We do also have 2 Damping Spheres for big mana decks such as Tron and Amulet, and to hose down any combo players. We have 2 Brazen Borrowers. Petty Theft can bounce anything we're having issues with, and it is its own threat, so being able to play this and equip a Cranial Plating or Nettlecyst can close out a game. We have 2 Hurkyl's Recalls, not just for a mirror match, but also to protect most of our deck. If our opponent goes to board wipe, we can bounce back all of our creatures and artifacts, play them again, and then take over the game. We do also play 2 Flusterstorms against any combo or control matchups. As we like to say, these sideboards are not end-all and be-all. You can also consider something like Apostle's Blessing if you want more protection, because this can protect any artifact we have in the deck. We can pay for white and always use our life as a resource and pay 2 life. Rounding out our sideboard, we have a Bots Veteran in Etched Champion. Etched Champion is great against any target removal, as it will almost always have Metalcraft active. If we put Cranial or Nettlecyst on this, we can pretty much win the game off of just that. Dismember can almost deal with any creature we can target. We can pay for the black thanks to Mistvault Bridge and Springleaf Drum. Using our own life as a resource is always an option. Affinity is an archetype that's paid its dues in Magic and is still going strong. Don't underestimate the power of this deck because it pulls wins out like crazy. I highly recommend it, and I know you'll have a blast with this just as I've had. That covers the deck. If you're looking for a highly synergistic and fun deck to play, this is the deck for you. It's also very affordable, which is always an added benefit. And if you do have Legacy 8 cast, well, you almost have this deck. That's going to do it in this video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or want to see another deck, let us know down below. You know how we do it here at DankMTG. Till next time, stay dank.